Not every HOA story is about power trips or unfair fines. Sometimes, they deliver the best plot twist of all. If you enjoy surprising real-life stories like this one, make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. The funny thing about communities is that they're only as strong as the people holding them together. My dad, an African-American man in his late 50s, never set out to run the homeowners association. He wasn't the loudest voice in the room or the type to chase down neighbors about trash bins left on the curb. He just believed in fairness, in keeping the neighborhood safe, welcoming, and balanced. Over time, his calm authority and steady sense of humor earned him the role of HOA president. He wore that position lightly. Most of the time, it meant responding to emails about lawn violations, organizing small community events, and mediating silly disputes between neighbors who otherwise would have avoided each other. But one particular incident showed everyone just how valuable his leadership truly was. It started like any other weekday afternoon. My dad went out for his regular walk around the community park. Nothing out of the ordinary: jeans, a polo shirt, walking shoes. He often liked to take those walks to stretch his legs, clear his head, and sometimes wave at neighbors or stop for quick chats. He was known in the neighborhood. Respected, even. But not everyone knew him yet. A woman, new to the community, maybe 2 weeks in, spotted him during one of his walks. Instead of introducing herself or giving a simple wave, she decided he looked suspicious. She assumed the worst. And instead of confronting him directly, she did what people like her always do: she sent an email. The message was directed to the HOA president. She claimed she had seen a suspicious man, obviously casing houses to rob them. She even attached photos she had taken, of my dad. The irony was almost poetic. She had emailed the HOA president himself, about himself. When my dad first opened the email, he chuckled. He wasn't surprised, though he was disappointed. He knew exactly what this was: another case of prejudice dressed up as concern. Still, instead of replying with anger, he saw an opportunity. He responded politely, "Thank you for bringing this to my attention. I'm very concerned after seeing the photos. Why don't I stop by your house so we can discuss the issue further and come up with some safety strategies?" She eagerly agreed. She probably thought she was doing the neighborhood a service. The day of the meeting arrived. My dad knocked on her door. She opened it, and froze. The man she had accused of being a criminal, the one she had photographed and reported, was standing on her porch. Except now, he wasn't just the suspicious guy in the park. He was the president of the HOA. The look on her face, my dad said, was priceless. Still calm, still collected, he introduced himself formally. "Hi. I'm the HOA president. You emailed me some concerns, and I thought we should discuss them in person." She stammered. Her eyes darted around, trying to find an escape, but there wasn't one. My dad didn't raise his voice. He didn't scold her. Instead, he leaned into his strength, making people confront their own biases with logic and quiet authority. He sat down across from her at her kitchen table and started asking questions. "So, what about this man made you feel unsafe?" Silence. "What about him made you think he was a threat?" She fumbled, trying to piece together excuses, something about unfamiliar faces and walking slowly. But the more she talked, the weaker her argument sounded. My dad let her squirm. He didn't need to yell, the weight of her own words was enough to corner her. And then, he looked her in the eye and said, "Do you realize you sent me photographs of myself?" Her face went pale. That was the end of her complaints. She never reported suspicious activity again. And while she remained in the community, she never looked my dad in the eye the same way again, either. The story spread around the neighborhood like wildfire. For many, it was a wake-up call. People realized prejudice wasn't always loud or aggressive, it could be subtle, whispered, typed out in an email. But it could also be confronted in ways that were sharp, smart, and undeniable. For my dad, it was just another day as HOA president. But for the community, it became a lesson. Sometimes, the HOA really can be the hero. The silence in her living room was heavy, the kind where every tick of the wall clock felt like thunder. My dad sat calmly across from her, hands folded, every bit the professional HOA president he was known to be. But beneath that calm, there was a weight to his words that she couldn't escape. He leaned forward slightly. "Let's revisit your email," he said. His tone wasn't angry, if anything, it was patient, almost like a teacher trying to guide a student toward an uncomfortable truth. "You claimed this man was casing homes, taking note of properties, looking suspicious. Tell me, why did you think that?" Her lips parted, but nothing came out. She was cornered, not by aggression, but by logic. She fiddled nervously with the hem of her sleeve, trying to piece together an answer that wouldn't sound as ugly out loud as it had seemed in her head. Finally, she stammered, I don't know. It seemed unusual. I didn't recognize him." My dad raised an eyebrow. "Unusual? Or unfamiliar?" His voice carried the subtle weight of years of being misjudged. "And tell me, do you feel that way about every neighbor you don't recognize? Or was it something specific about him?" Her eyes darted down to the floor. For the first time, she realized that the stranger she thought she was protecting the community from was the very man keeping the community together. When she didn't answer, my dad continued. "Let me make something clear. In this neighborhood, we value safety, but safety isn't built on assumptions or prejudice. You sent photos of me, your HOA president, implying I was a criminal. Imagine if I had not been the one to receive that email. Imagine if that photo had been forwarded elsewhere, to police, to security. Do you see how dangerous that could have been?" Her face flushed red with embarrassment. She tried again to defend herself, though her words came out weak. I didn't mean any harm. I thought I was helping." My dad nodded slowly, his eyes steady. "And I'm not here to attack you. But help doesn't come from jumping to conclusions about your neighbors, especially based on nothing more than how they look. That's not a community. That's division." There was a long pause. She seemed to shrink in her seat, the weight of her mistake finally settling in. Then, with deliberate care, my dad leaned back and said, "I want you to remember this moment. Because next time, instead of fear, you could choose curiosity. Next time, instead of making assumptions, you could introduce yourself. That's what being a good neighbor looks like." For a while, she just sat there in silence, her pride wrestling with shame. Finally, she nodded. "I understand. It won't happen again." My dad gave her a small, measured smile, the kind that said the conversation was over but the lesson better not be forgotten. "I hope not," he said, rising from his chair. "Because in this community, we look out for each other. All of us." When he told me the story later that night, he chuckled at how her jaw had practically hit the floor when she realized the suspicious man was him. But beneath his laughter, I could tell it wasn't just funny to him, it was personal. This wasn't just about one neighbor making an ignorant assumption. It was about the bigger picture, how quickly people can turn suspicion into accusation without stopping to consider the damage it might cause. And the best part? She never sent another complaint. In fact, a few weeks later, she showed up at a community cleanup event, awkwardly but sincerely volunteering alongside everyone else. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was growth. Either way, the HOA president had handled the situation with dignity and strength, showing everyone in the neighborhood what true leadership looks like. Because sometimes, the HOA isn't the villain of the story. Sometimes, it's the HOA, led by the right person, that teaches the hardest but most necessary lessons about what it really means to be a community.